Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today we've got another action figure review for you, and we are taking a look at the Archive Wave Commander Cody from the Clone Wars. Now obviously it's a re-release of Commander Cody, but it's the first time I've got my hands on him, so I'm really looking forward to this. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe. You won't miss any of the content to come, plenty more like this, and leave a like on this video if you enjoy it too. So let's jump into it. What are you going to get in the box? So you're going to get two blaster rifles. You're going to get the standard clone kind of assault rifle, just completely black. Nice moulding on it. It's more of a solid blaster. It's not that kind of rubbery texture. It's the more sort of solid plastic one, so it doesn't bend as much, which is quite nice as long as the mould you get out of the box is straight, obviously. So this one's pretty good. There's no other detail on it apart from just the the black moulding. It's not painted; it's just moulded in that black plastic. I mean, it looks good. It's more the fact of when it's not weathered and stuff like that. You can't see as much of that detail, but obviously on screen most of the blasters are just black or grey or something like that. Not many of them are two-tone, so I can't complain too much. These are the standard blasters that you get with the clones, just the normal clones from even Phase 1, so it's nothing too different. Obviously, this being a re-release figure, these are the older rifles, so nothing new here in terms of what Commander Cody comes with. This is the obviously kind of large machine gun type blaster, or heavy repeater, or whatever you want to call it. It's the kind of it's the famous blaster rifle that's almost as long as the clone is. I always thought that was funny, kind of just watching them hold these massive rifles, but I always thought it looks cool too. I really want them to release a clone that has the kind of the equivalent of the kind of blaster minigun, because I think that's really cool. In terms of that, that's all you get in the box with Commander Cody, but obviously taking a look at Commander Cody straight off the bat, you can see how absolutely awesome he looks. So in terms of accessories, I'm not too worried about that. Obviously, Cody has all sorts of attachments and antennae, and like all sorts of little kind of belt attachments and stuff like that. So nothing boring when it comes to Cody. So it's nice to not just have a simple clone. I like that we get these repaints, and especially Commander Cody, obviously him and Rex, some of the most predominant sort of personalized clones from live action. Obviously we've seen them in the Clone Wars, and other troopers like the ARC troopers and stuff like that, but Cody obviously was one of the originals that most people can sort of remember. So taking a look at Cody, I mean, the design, he looks fantastic. I mean, that Phase 2 helmet, I love the Phase 2 clone helmets. I think they're so cool. I like the Phase 1 helmets, but I'm a massive Stormtrooper fan, and I really like the kind of circular bottom, kind of tubing looking helmet of the Phase 2, and then obviously subsequently the Stormtroopers and these blue kind of lines, and the kind of mouthpiece looking thing. So obviously when they moved to Phase 2, I was a big fan of those helmets. Looking at the design, I think they've nailed Commander Cody because of his his various paint schemes, like his pauldron and knee pads and stuff like that. And they've got the detailing, here they've got, it's not just solid orange, they've got some white straps in there, they've got some brown strapping in there, some yellows, some oranges, some whites, some greys, some kind of coppery looking tones as well. And I think that they've really nailed it. I mean, like, you can see his kind of ranking on his chest and stuff like that. His on his helmet you can see his antennae, and then on his shoulder, his visor. I mean, his helmet, look at that paint application. I mean, there's two things at work here. The design is awesome for Commander Cody, and they have kind of nailed that likeness. So that's kind of why I'm glad they've re-released it and not really changed it, because they nailed it the first time. It's good to get him back. I really do want to see him in the Bad Batch, to see what ended up happening to Cody. sort of see more of him. So we'll see, I guess, as the weeks go on. But in terms of the design of Cody, they've nailed him. And then the paint applications, like you can see how many different colours are on this figure. The silver there, like even the antennae, you got silver and a copper, a copper tip, the blue and the orange on the helmet, the grey, the white, the black. None of it is bleeding. It is just looking absolutely fantastic. And all around the figure, he looks spectacular. The paint application, on mine at least, I can't necessarily speak for all of them, but on mine at least, is absolutely immaculate. I love how they've captured, the design and the look of him, but also they've nailed the paint application in the real life process. In terms of moving on to his articulation now, obviously he's a re-release, so he is the older build, but he is such an awesome looking figure. He has such presence, there's so much detail, so much going on, that I think that that's going to help make up for some of the lack of updated articulation in terms of the technology they've used. It's kind of like with the Scout Trooper. They've when they re-released the Scout for Jedi Fallen Order, they've reused or re-released that figure just with a few additions, and they've pretty much kept the same build. They kept on the Scout Trooper, they kept the double jointed arms and legs so that he can sort of get on a speeder bike, that sort of thing, which is great. Obviously now we've sort of come forward in terms of what joints we use and stuff like that, so not all of them always work, but with Cody you can see that he's got his double jointed arms and stuff like that. So although normally on the arms it doesn't really work, I think it really works on Cody because of the amount of detail we've got going on, and the fact that they've hidden that joint in in the design. They've put the orange like elbow pad as the joint, so that it's not some random kind of shaped big bulky thing that makes his arms look all weird, but rather it actually kind of looks like it's meant to be that way. So that's really good. In terms of articulation, we'll move on to it now, and Cody, we haven't seen Cody in these massive dynamic poses because typically we've seen him in his commander role. He's telling people where to go, what to do, and he's not typically in the heat of battle. We've seen him a few times in scenarios in Clone Wars, but he will get into positions. You will be able to put him into kind of dynamic fight scenes, just maybe not as much as maybe the newer stormtroopers and those builds and stuff like that. But let's jump into his articulation now. In terms of from the feet, he's got a pretty decent kind of point down. It's not fantastic. He's got a good point up though, like a really good point up, which is nice. Means that he can kind of be in these running poses where the back foot needs to be at that angle. A lot of figures won't do that, so that's quite nice. He's got a bit of a pivot, as most of them do, to be honest. It's quite a deceptive thing that most figures have this really, really flexible ankle. So that's really good, obviously, because if you're pointing toe to sky and you're angling him back, you can get him flat in a position that most figures won't allow, so that's good. Moving up to the knee, obviously, as we talked about, this older build, they've really used the double jointing well in kind of tandem with the knee pads. So instead of this just being a big exposed joint like it was on the old Stormtroopers, the double jointed leg, which allows him to go completely up, which is fantastic. Obviously, the double jointed knee is covered by that knee pad, and it just looks way more natural, so it looks fantastic, so that's really good. Moving up to the hips, it's got a pretty good split, not fantastic, but he will go completely up at the front and swivel kind of out to the back as well, so you can really get him in these striding poses. But yeah, so in terms of his at the hips, what you aren't going to get sideways, you're going to get on a rotational ball. So like we say, he can kind of open the gate out wide and do it to the back as well, which is actually really good. I I do prefer having that big wide range of motion, especially for Black Series figures, because getting them into running poses or dynamic poses with a kick or all that sort of thing, it's a lot easier when you use these joints. So I'm glad that they incorporated on Cody. In terms of his belt, obviously coming up to here, his torso moves, but his lower torso doesn't, which is something that most of the builds incorporate. To be honest, even the older and new ones, it's something. It's it's a system that it's not broken, so don't fix it. So that's good there. He will go quite the ways around. If you need him to. At the wrist, he's got a little bit of a wrist flex, but not too much. He's got enough to sort of come in, like he's holding, he could do it like he's holding a, maybe a document or like a kind of iPad looking device, or all sorts of things. So it's actually deceptively good. It's it comes all the way in, kind of like the Scout Troopers and the TIE pilots and stuff like that. But it doesn't look like it's going to. Obviously backwards, out. It's not going to. But realistically, your arms and your hands don't move like that, so that's fine. So really, actually good in the hands. Quite deceptive. I didn't think that it was going to come in that much. I could see that the joint was there, but I didn't know if the capability would actually be there too. In the arms, as we talked about, if I can get this into focus for you, the double joints again, making his curl a lot better, if you can see. So he will push up to sort of just just past 90. Obviously, because if I can get it into focus for you, because the elbow pad is a little bit thicker, the arms kind of get stuck there and can't go any further to curl completely up like the Scout Troopers do, but that's fine. I mean, more than 90 is more than we get on most figures. In terms of the shoulder pauldrons, they are kind of hard plastic, and when you move the arm up, they go, as you can see here, if I can get it to focus for you again, they go up over the chest plate armour. He will barely kind of get to 90 because they're quite chunky ones, but again, it's not too bad and you can work around it. He will go completely round, so that's fine there. But like I say, you've got to remember that, for example, for design purposes, they've stuck with the chunkier pauldrons like he has, so he's not going to be able to get it all the way up there, because it will force it into the neck too much. In terms of the head is actually spectacular, as you can kind of see here. There's no head sculpt in there on this older build because they didn't do that, but because it's ball and socket, it means that you can get a hell of a look down. Like that chin to chest is the best I've ever seen, honestly. I've never seen a chin to chest better than that. That's fantastic. And then if you're doing kind of looking left and right, he's got the 360 swivel. Looking up, again, like look at that. I mean, if I can get that to focus for you, that's so good. That honestly is the best helmet articulation I've ever seen on a Black Series figure. So yeah, fantastic. So what we'll do is we'll wrap it up with some final thoughts on the Commander Cody. Okay then, so let's talk versatility. So obviously it's a clone, so you are kind of held to the clone era, although are you? Because we haven't seen clone Commander Cody since Order 66, and you can do all sorts of creative things. I'm sure you could use him in scenes where kind of he's maybe he's on the hunt for Kenobi and whatever. Maybe they followed that avenue, or maybe he's just part of the transition to the new Empire, and maybe we see him in the Bad Batch. We don't know, but obviously it's clone Commander Cody. He's so prevalent, and referenced so much in all of the Clone Wars, in the prequels. Obviously he's a bit plays a big part of that, and the live action, and that the transition of the story that way. And obviously, I mean, it's clone Commander Cody. It's like Rex. They are synonymous with the Clone War era, and I think he's so versatile in that respect. he's so versatile as well because he's in charge, so you can have the regs around and you can have him around, sort of leading missions, but also you could do shots with Jedi and captains and all that sort of thing. So I think he's way more versatile than he would probably seem. Obviously there's the issue of like phase 2 helmets, and we only have the re-release and the new phase 1 clones. I would like to get some phase 2 clones, because again, like I said earlier, I prefer those helmets, and like it would just be nice for continuity reasons. But obviously you can do it with phase 1 clones. But I mean, just taking a little look, closer look at him up close here, I mean, he just this figure is fantastic. Black Series really knocked it out of the park with this Clone Commander Cody, and I think he just looks fantastic. He's got so much presence in terms of a display. Like I say, you don't even have to be posing him up too much. You could just have him out here like this, kind of pointing, kind of ordering, orchestrating some regs, and he'd look the part. You could have him with a Jedi or the Emperor talking. You could have him in a battle scene, and that's obviously, like I say, that's possibilities that could be done for display purposes or toy photography purposes. I'm really looking forward to integrating him at some point in my toy photography, and I'm really glad that I was able to pick him up and get him in this archive, re-released archive wave. So in terms of my overall score for Cody, I think that he's a fantastic looking figure, so much presence. I think there's a lot of possibilities you can have with Cody, and to be honest, I definitely think that he's a prevalent figure, that he's a pickup for sure. I think when the archive wave sells out, that there's going to be a lot of people wanting to get their hands back on Cody. So all things considered, I really love the paint application and the design of Cody. I like the posability, considering it's an older figure. It is very good, and yeah, I mean, just an awesome figure. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. I do think he's an awesome trooper, and I look forward to kind of the subsequent releases because of the Bad Batch. Obviously we've got Clone Wars, Obi and Anakin being released, and Echo. I've pre-ordered those. I'm really looking forward to that. I'd like to get a few more ARC troopers released, or I'm really hoping that they re-release Captain Rex. That's kind of number one on my wish list at the moment. So we'll keep an eye out for that and keep our fingers crossed. But that's gonna do it for me here, guys. So I'm gonna leave you with that, and take care, and I'll see you in the next one.